Good morning. Today we're going to read Psalm 39. I'm going to read it to you. I said, I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth while in the presence of the wicked. So I remained utterly silent, not even saying anything good. But my anguish increased. My heart grew hot within me. When I meditated, the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. So David's I'm not going to say anything, but it's like, I can't keep this quiet. Verse 4, show me, Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. You have made my days a mere handbreadth. The span of my years is as nothing before you. Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. Surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush about, heaping up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be. But now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. Save me from all my transgressions. Do not make me the scorn of fools. I was silent. I would not open my mouth, for you are the one who's done this. He's blaming God for his troubles. Remove your scourge from me. I am overcome by the blow of your hand. So he sees his troubles as coming from God's hand. When you rebuke and discipline anyone for their sin, you consume their wealth like a moth. Surely everyone is but a breath. Hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for help. Do not be deaf to my weeping. I dwell with you as a foreigner, a stranger, as all my ancestors were. Look away from me, that I may enjoy life again before I depart and am no more. One commentator that I was reading talked about this very sad psalm that really doesn't provide much. Now, you can hang your hat kind of on verse 7, but now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. But overall, it is a psalm of someone who's just honestly feeling troubled and like God's hand is heavy on them. There's a temptation when we do these devotionals to just wrap everything up with a tight knot and say, but then everything came out fine for David and he had a great day. But that's not the way the life of faith is it? When I came to faith, I was living in Winter Park, Florida, and I went to Rollins College, and just a couple miles from campus there, and where I was living at the time when I came to faith, was a very fast-growing church that would become somewhat notorious called Calvary Chapel. And the associate pastor was a person named Benny Hinn. And Benny Hinn would become one of the most famous faith healers and prosperity gospel preachers of our day. And you probably heard of him. I recently saw that his nephew, who has the unusual name Costi Hinn, C-O-S-T-I Hinn, was on a podcast, and I listened to part of it. I read an article about it called Preachers and Sneakers, and it's kind of a satire site about prosperity gospel preachers and their expensive clothes and so on. And Costi in this says that he was in the middle of that prosperity gospel for quite a time because of his father was a prosperity preacher, and then he became one. And he said we would go to these events and we would tell people that if they would give us a check, this is what he said, for $500,000, then God would heal their Down syndrome child. He said then we would go off and leave in our $10,000 suits and fly off in our Gulfstream jet and drive our very expensive Bentleys and know that God hadn't done anything to heal their children, their child. And he said we exploited the poor and we exploited the rich by manipulating them. And he said, you may think it's a little bit funny, but he said, I just found it sick as I look back on what I was involved in. I say that because real life is more like this psalm sometimes, isn't it? Where things don't tie themselves up into a neat knot and we find ourselves saying, but God solved it all and everything was fine. As a pastor, I deal with people like I've been dealing with this week, a woman who lost her grandmother and then this week her mother, in very short order, and dealing with that loss. Someone else who got a very serious, very, very serious diagnosis that I heard about just today. And what I want to say to you is the reason I've always been so adamantly opposed to the heresy of prosperity gospel is because it tells people the lie that if you believe enough and you have enough faith, God will do this, and he has to do it. And so when that doesn't happen, people feel like either they've done something wrong or there's something wrong with God. And I think that's a very, very sad thing. The Bible, on the other hand, as Costi Hinn said, he said, I was in this prosperity gospel for a while. I was a pastor, and then I got saved, he said, interestingly enough. But he said, then I started reading the Bible, and I found out that what I was teaching just didn't go along with it at all. The Bible is far more realistic and says there are times when news is just not good. And it's not a sign that God's not with us. And that's what I really want to leave with you today. That God is with you even when you have your worst days. Even when I have my worst days, God says, that doesn't mean I'm not with you. It doesn't mean I don't love you. That's the truth of the Bible. And I hope that it brings you some comfort in your hard days.